G'day guys, my name is Caleb, otherwise known as the Critic Kebab, and welcome to this video where we're going to be speculating who stays and who goes from the Chelsea Football Club for next season. The most recent breaking news is that Mauricio Pochettino is no longer the head coach at the club. He has parted company by mutual consent and will no longer be going on this long-term project. Now, as of the making of this video, I do not know who the next manager is going to be, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to guess with any accuracy what the transfer policy will be. But the ownership seem like they're continuing with their strategy of buying young, unproven players such as Estevao Willian for crazy money. So what I'm going to do instead is approach this video as if I was the manager and I had a say in terms of recruitment for the 2024-25 season. Now I'm going to have some gameplay going on in the background with what our team could possibly look like lining up in the next season, but let's not waste any time and go through the entire squad from bottom to top, starting with the goalkeepers. And this is an area of the field that I think needs addressing for next season. Petrovic and Bettinelli are going to be staying at the club 100%. Some of you will instantly identify that Kepa Arrizabalaga and Robert Sanchez are not here. That's because I do not trust them to be the number one goalkeeper at this club. We bought Sanchez from Brighton, who at the time was the number two goalkeeper. We brought him to the club to be the number two that would be rivaling Kepa, who was going to be the number one. But if you guys cast your mind back and remember that when Courtois got injured at the beginning of the Real Madrid season, that's when they came in for Kepa, lured him away and got him on loan for that season. However, he came into the team at Real Madrid and then got instantly demoted to being the second tier goalkeeper behind Lunin. And obviously Courtois never got fully fit, but Kepa did not feature very often in that team. So if you think about it, Courtois is the number one, Lunin is the number two, and Kepa is the number three. And in my opinion, that's not, that doesn't shine him in very good light, in my opinion. We'll talk more about who we're going to sell a little bit later in this video as we progress through the players that we want to be keeping. But Petrovic, who has been our number one for most of this season, I think has done a decent job. He's pretty good with the ball at his feet. He seems calm. He definitely makes me calm as a viewer when he's on the ball. And he seems like a decent shot stopper, but he's still very young and inexperienced. But I don't want to see us buy another goalkeeper that's not fully proven, that's sort of an up-and-coming goalkeeper. I want us to buy, if we are going to buy one, a fully established older goalkeeper that has proven himself at the highest level. Now, some of you then may ask who that goalkeeper would be, and it's hard to determine because a lot of the most elite goalkeepers in the world are at clubs and they don't seem to be going anywhere. You think of Mark ter Stegen at Barcelona, he's probably not going to go anywhere. Kobel at Dortmund, I doubt he's going to leave. Donnarumma at PSG, and then obviously Edison and Alisson at Man City and Liverpool respectively. These are the best keepers in the world, and I just can't see any of them being lured away to come to Chelsea Football Club. You think maybe Jan Oblak from Atletico Madrid, he might be leaving, so he could be an option, but he's 30 years old. Whether the ownership go down that route, I don't know. Me personally, I would definitely consider him as an option, but we definitely need an elite goalkeeper. So let's now progress away from the goalkeeping situation and move into the defense. And this is going to be an area of much contention, I feel like. Thiago Silva, no longer at the club, which means an experienced, older player who has so much composure and wisdom is no longer going to be in the ranks and dictating the defensive shape in our starting 11. Is that going to be a major problem? I don't know. Do we need to replace him? I don't actually think so. Because Trevor Chalobah, who's come into the team in recent weeks, has actually proved to be very reliable. And I actually think he's probably our third best centre-back at the club, behind Levi Colwill and Wesley Fofana. Now, I understand Fofana has been injured the whole season, and it's a complete lottery how well he's going to return to form when he comes back from his injury. He could come back and hit the ground running, or he could be an absolute shadow of his previous self. So that's a result that will be left to be seen. But I think Colwill and Fofana are the centre-back partnership that we want to be seeing at the club moving forward. Chalobah as a backup option that could be, quite versatile, playing left centre-back or right centre-back, or even playing at right back if so be it. But Badiashile and Disasi, I haven't been severely impressed by what they've shown us this season, but I do see potential. I see potential in Badiashile because he's quite composed on the football and he seems to be quite direct and ambitious with his passing up the field. Disasi, I think he's actually quite weak on the football. I don't think he has much technical skill, but in terms of tenacity and ferocity and aerial threat, I think he could definitely be useful. So I don't want to see Disasi, Badiashile, Chalobah, Fofana, or Colwill leave the club in any capacity. I understand Chalobah because he's a player that's come through the academy and we could sell him for pure profit due to financial rules and PSR, but to me, I think it would be a complete mistake if we're selling Chalobah to get a better coin and then spending that money that we got from him on another centre-back. I just don't think that's a logical move because he hasn't done too much wrong, and I think he's a reliable option. So I definitely don't want to see any of these centre-back options be sold in the next transfer window. We of course look to our right and left back flanks respectively. I think Cucurella and Ben Chilwell on the left are both still solid options. Ben Chilwell, he's one of the older heads in the club now. He is the vice captain, and yes, he is injured for a large portion of the season. And to me, that's a red flag. If you cannot sustain yourself for a large portion of the season, then question marks need to be raised. But I would say the same thing of Reece James. But he is our captain, and on his day when he is fully fit, is without a doubt the best right back in the world. So I wouldn't sell Reece James. So by that same logic, I'm not going to quickly push Ben Chilwell out the door. And something that we have been talking about, especially when Pochettino was the manager, is that this squad needs some older, more experienced heads in the dressing room. And Ben Chilwell played in that Champions League final. He knows how to win football games, and I think he's still going to be a vital aspect of this squad, even if he's not the number one left back, because Marc Cucurella, especially towards the end of this season, I think has been performing quite well, especially when he's inverted and gets more involved in the midfield and helps Caicedo out, making those tackles, winning those duels, etc. And Malo Gusto as the backup option in that right back position, I think is absolutely great. Maybe we could have a third option in that left or right back position, but Mauricio Pochettino and most head coaches like to have a squad that's relatively small and confined and not having to deal with so many players. And that's what we had to deal with a couple seasons ago. So I think having two options in the right and left back position is probably all we need. And if we're super desperate for more players in that position, then we can always go to the academy and get some players from there, because Chelsea, we have one of the best academies in the world. Let's now transition to the midfield. And this is an area where some people are going to be very disappointed if one particular player is sold in this transfer window. And that is Conor Gallagher. In my opinion, I think he needs to stay. I think he's performed extremely well. He's exceeded my expectations. I always saw him as a player that would sit more deep and would be a tenacity, hungry, tackle-driven type player. And when he played a deeper role under Mauricio Pochettino, I thought he did quite well. But he did get involved on the score sheet on multiple occasions this season. And I want to quickly show you your stats, because Pochettino clearly loved Conor Gallagher this season. If you look here, he played 37 times under Pochettino. 38 games in a season, 37 games. That proves that his leadership quality and his lack of injury prone is going to be super important for us in terms of having a competitive squad going forward in the near future. I understand that if we sold him, we'd probably get £50 million, £60 million. We'd get good coin for him. And if we need to balance the books, I understand why Gallagher would be the one to be sold. But to the ownership care about building a competitive team that's going to be pushing for the Premier League and getting back into the Champions League? And if the answer to that question is yes, then Conor Gallagher, in my opinion, needs to stay. Not because he's the best midfielder in our team. I think that's not true at all. But I think as a squad player, someone who could come off the bench, or if we have injuries to Fernandes or Chukwuemeka, he can come into the team and be someone that shows leadership and demonstrates what it means to wear the Chelsea badge and play at the highest level. And I really like Conor Gallagher. I think a lot of what he's done this season has, again, like I said before, exceeded my expectations, and I don't want to see him go in the upcoming transfer window. As we look at the other midfielders that are there, not much has changed. I don't think the midfield area is something that we need to be strengthening straight away. This is not an area where we have clear deficiencies. I understand we had a massive injury crisis and we were quite limited in terms of personnel who we had at our disposal, but assuming all these players are fit and firing, you want these players to be competitive and trying to push into the starting 11. And I think with this group here, that is going to 100% be the case, because you've got Moises Caicedo and Romeo Lavia as the CDM pivot role. They can interchange between each other. You've obviously got Conor Gallagher and Enzo Fernandez, who can play that box-to-box midfield role, constantly, getting into the pockets of spaces and contributing forward, but also, building out from the back. And then, of course, you've got Carney Chukwuemeka, who's that explosive, exciting, attacking midfield player. And then Leslie Ukachukwu, who's probably going to be sitting a little bit more deeper, but again, being that support midfield role that can be an option off the bench if we need to protect the result. And I think Caicedo this season has been absolutely amazing. I understand he's made a few high-profile mistakes with bad passes that have led to goals, but as an overall defensive midfield performance this season, I think he's been probably third best in the Premier League, behind Rodri and Declan Rice. So again, big credit to Moises Caicedo. Now let's transition into the attacking areas of the field before we get into the striker situation. As you can see here, Mykhailo Mudryk on the left, Noni Madueke on the right, and then Nkunku and Palmer in that sort of creative central role. Now, some of you may be saying, this team so far looks very similar to what we've already had. And the answer to that is yes, because I actually don't think our squad needs too much refinement. I think we've got a very good competitive team that can be pushing for top 4 football, and in a couple seasons when everyone sort of reaches their prime, can be pushing for the Premier League, because Pep Guardiola is not going to be staying at the club forever. I can't see that being the case. So once Guardiola leaves, and now that Klopp has left, Mikel Arteta is probably going to be the biggest threat in the Premier League. And Chelsea beating Arsenal, I could definitely see that being the case. So I think in terms of our creative output, we don't need to be changing too much. In saying that, I do think we're a little bit weak in terms of our options coming from the wing positions. Mykhailo Mudryk on the left, I think, is our number one, because I do see the potential. I do genuinely believe that this guy can turn into an Eden Hazard type player. I just think he needs confidence. He needs that Cole Palmer level confidence. You saw how good Palmer was this season. The confidence was just exuding out of his entire body. If we can transfer that into Mykhailo Mudryk, I can see him driving at players, taking defenders one-on-one and scoring plenty of goals. But I think he's very much so a confidence-driven player. So hopefully next season he hits the ground running. But Noni Madueke on the right, again, I don't think he's done too much wrong. I understand there's rumours that we might be purchasing Elise from Crystal Palace. Again, he's a good player, but do we really need more right wingers in this squad, considering how many players in that position that we've just been purchasing in recent months, but also that we've got out on loan? We've got Angelo Gabriel, we've got this new kid from Brazil, Esteval Willian. We've got Amari Hutchinson from Ipswich, who did really well last season. And then, of course, Noni Madueke. And I think he's probably the best of the bunch. And I want to see him continue next season as the main man on that right wing. But if one of those players on the left or the right was to get injured, I can definitely see Nkunku doing a job on that left side and patrolling the left flank and making those driving runs in forward, as well as finding himself in the pockets of spaces. And the same for Cole Palmer. He's the first person on the team sheet in this squad, in my opinion. He is absolutely amazing, potentially world-class if he continues this form. And to be getting the kind of stats that he was getting this season, I was absolutely bemused. The fact that he's, competing with the likes of Didier Drogba and Frank Lampard in terms of goal involvements in his first season at the club is astronomically insane. He had 34 appearances in the Premier League this season, scoring 22 goals, being second in the Golden Boot tally just behind Erling Haaland, and we all know how good of a goal scorer he is. And he of course had 11 assists. 11! So to have 33 direct goal involvements in your first season is completely incredible. And like I said, if he continues that form for years to come, he could definitely be a Chelsea legend. But at the same time, there is a part of me that is concerned, because if Chelsea continue to go on this downward spiral and we don't accomplish our objectives, then Palmer could potentially be a player that leaves when a Real Madrid or a Barcelona comes sniffing. But that's a conversation for a later day. Hopefully he's at the football club for many years to come. But in terms of stats, Cole Palmer, you've probably heard most of them, but he has been absolutely superb this season. And when he's not played in the team, we've sorely missed him. So I definitely want to see him be the main man next season in that central attacking midfield role, having Noni Madueke on the right and Mykhailo Mudryk on the left. But then the question becomes, how do we fit Nkunku into the team? Does he play cam? Does he play left wing? Or does he play striker? Now, let's bring the striker options onto the screen now, and you'll see that there's a gap in between Jackson and David Washington, and that gap, to me, needs to be filled by another elite striker from abroad, the Nigerian Victor Osimhen. He's the striker that I think Chelsea need to be pushing for next season. There has been so many rumours, and you've had players like John Obi Mikel and Didier Drogba doing their own networking and scouting with the man, trying to persuade him to join the Blues, and all I think it would take is to put in an offer that Napoli would be happy with, and he's going to come to the Chelsea Football Club. Nicholas Jackson, who has also performed very well this season. Again, I want to bring his stats up, because Jackson has definitely outperformed expectations this season, and considering he was mocked a lot in the early stages of the season for the chances that he missed, to get the stats that he had towards the end of the season, I thought was very good. So 35 appearances, 14 goals, and 5 assists. As a striker in his first season at the Premier League, I think that is really, really good. Again, he's pushing players like Drogba in his first season at the club, and compared to other players that have been quite prolific at the Blues in recent memory, you think of Alvaro Morata, you think of Diego Costa. He was only just behind those guys. So in terms of his first season at the club, you have to give credit where credit is due. Nicholas Jackson has definitely offered us a goal-scoring threat. But not only that, he pushes the defenders and puts them under pressure. He's a good aerial threat. He's pretty decent with his hold-up play and his passing and his link-up. And he just offers so much when we're going forward into the attack. The biggest weakness he has is his decision-making and his ability to put the ball in the back of the net in key moments. How many times this season has he failed to score a goal and has led to us being knocked out of a competition or failing to win the game? You think of that headed opportunity against Arsenal in the first half, away from home, and then of course the game against Manchester City, where he has served up so many chances on a dinner plate, a beautiful dessert, if you will, and he's gone to put it in his mouth and it's landed right in his lap. So Nicholas Jackson, I think he's a really solid option, and I want to see him continue at the club, but I think he'd be a great backup option to come off the bench and contribute in that way, but also to learn from another striker who's got more experience and is more prolific than him. And in my opinion, I understand there's lots of rumors going around on who the striker would be that we're going to sign at the club. I understand Benjamin Sesko from RB Leipzig is rumoured, but he's only 20 and a young player as well, so I can't see us going for him. There's obviously that guy from Sporting Lisbon, Victor Goretzka. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his last name, but he's been extremely prolific in the Portuguese league, scoring so many goals under Ruben Amorim. But again, I'm not quite sure if his skills would translate to the Premier League and hit the ground running. Whereas Victor Osimhen, I think he's got the height, he's got the aerial presence, he's got the speed, he's got the agility, and his right foot putting the ball in the back of the net is absolutely lethal. And in my opinion, I think Victor Osimhen is the man to save our team in terms of our goal scoring ability moving forward. David Washington as the third option, not much to be said on him. I don't see a reason to put him out on loan. Definitely keep him around, and maybe he could feature in a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup early stage fixture. Let's now transition into the players that we're going to sell. If I was the head coach and in charge of recruitment, I would be getting rid of Kepa Arrizabalaga and Robert Sanchez. Both those goalkeepers are not good enough for the Chelsea Football Club. Some of these are no-brainers. I think Malang Sarr, how is this guy still at the club? It's honestly embarrassing, the fact that he has been basically demoted to the under 21s or wherever he exists, and he's collecting an exorbitant amount of money a week and not even featuring under Pochettino. Pochettino probably still doesn't know who he is, if you guys remember that funny clip in a press conference. You think of Lewis Hall going to Newcastle, I think that clause is going to be activated and he's going to be joining them next season for a good bit of coin. Again, an academy graduate, so that's good for the profit and sustainability rules. Same with Ian Matson. He's got a £35 million release clause. Borussia Dortmund have thoroughly enjoyed his presence in the team, and I understand they're trying to haggle and trying to get that price a little bit less, but if Dortmund aren't willing to pay, I can totally see someone else coming in and paying that release clause because he's a decent player. Hakim Ziyech, he's going to be leaving the club. I think that's already been confirmed. He will be joining Galatasaray, I think on a free, so that's unfortunate, not getting any return on investment for him. Raheem Sterling, he's the other big player that you guys would have seen on the thumbnail, and I do genuinely believe we need to be selling this guy. The fact that he's the highest paid player at the club, and this season has been so consistently inconsistent, to me is just simply not good enough. You can't be at the club when you are one of the more experienced players, especially playing Premier League football your whole career, and then be not good enough at the Chelsea Football Club. I understand it's a time of transition, but he is one of those players that should have been performing like Cole Palmer did this season. And if you guys remember, coming into this season, he said he wanted to be the top goal scorer. And not only did he not accomplish that feat, but he just didn't do anything that would give me the trust to see him in a Chelsea jersey again. And I understand a couple games ago he did score off the bench in that game against Nottingham Forest. But me personally, he could be a good versatile player that plays on the left, plays on the right. But for someone getting paid that amount of money to be a bench player, I just morally, I can't accept that. And he's just not been good enough so far in his career at the Chelsea Football Club. So let's try and ship him out, whether it's out to Saudi Arabia or the MLS or whoever will take him. Raheem Sterling, I appreciate you, but you've not given me many memories to be happy about. And as a result, I would sell you from this club. And then the other two striking options that we need to be getting rid of, Romelu Lukaku, that's an obvious one for me. He was definitely at the club for a paycheck and not to play for the badge. He betrayed us as soon as he wasn't getting along with Thomas Tuchel. Did that horrendous media interview over in Italy. And he's obviously been on the fringes since the new ownership has come in. And Romelu Lukaku, I do not think he's the striker he once was. So please, ship him out. You get as much money as we can for him. It's probably not going to be a lot, but Romelu Lukaku, I do not like you as an individual. I think you're slimy, and I don't want to see you at the Chelsea Football Club anymore. Armando Broja, again, this is a player that at the beginning of the season, I saw a lot of potential in. And I really did genuinely believe that he would be a great second option behind Nicholas Jackson. But when he was in the team this season, he didn't exactly light any fireworks off. And the fact that he then went to Fulham on loan to get more minutes and then ended the season basically being the bench option that entire time and being second fiddle to Muniz at Fulham is again a huge red flag. Because I would ask you this question: is Muniz a striker that's worthy of wearing the Chelsea jersey? And in my opinion, absolutely no. He's not that good. So if Broja is not better than him, then Broja is not Chelsea worthy, in my opinion. And as a result, I think we need to sell him and again, get some of that academy money to go towards PSR. And when you look at this, you've got Maatsen, Hall, and Broja coming in for a bit of coin. I'm not sure that's enough to balance the books as if, like it would be if Chalobah and Gallagher left, but there's still enough money to be made in this upcoming transfer window. And then hopefully we spend good money on an elite striker and an elite goalkeeper to round out this squad so that everyone in the Chelsea community can be happy with the players that we've got and the foundation that we're going to be moving forward to in this long-term project. The next question is who's going to be the coach to maneuver the next Premier League season? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Who would you sell? Who would you buy? Do you agree with the squad that I've got up on screen? Is it good enough to be pushing for Champions League football and eventually one day winning the Premier League title? If you've enjoyed my Chelsea coverage for this season, smash that like button, comment your thoughts like I said below, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you in another video sometime soon. Come on, you Blues.